The Asian Football Confederation once again postpones World Cup qualifiers. How is this going to affect Iran? You're about to find out on Melli Talk. Hey everyone, glad you're back for some more Melli Talk. Obviously, we're focusing on the postponement of the World Cup qualifiers in Asia. And joining me once again, my good friend, Pasha Gerami.
Pasha, as always, great to have you back on the show.
Thank you, R. I appreciate you inviting me once again.
Before we start getting into the details and the specifics and all that, I have this really important question for you, Pasha.
Is this all going to come down to these qualifiers being decided by the drawing of lots?
Well, it seems like it in some respect, but I think it will be beneficial for the national team of Iran if we look at a couple of different factors. First and foremost, the relatively young tenure of Skocic gives him more time to analyze the players, the teams, perhaps incorporate a camp or two. And we know how abysmal our initial start to the campaign was, so this will just give us more time, perhaps, and it can only help us, I think. Had the qualifiers occurred last year, I wouldn't have been as confident about Iran's progression, but the time might be to our benefit.
Okay, you're talking about benefit. I get that, but I'm also not getting it because think about how many games are going to be played over a short amount of days. I mean, June 3rd, that'll be against Hong Kong.
4 days later, June 7th, against Cambodia, then against Bahrain, June 11th, and then against Iraq, June the 15th.
These games are going to be played at a centralized location. And let's take it one thing at a time. Iran did submit a proposal to host all remaining matches in Group C. And this is not surprising considering that, before all this was announced,
Iran originally was already hosting 3 of their Final Four qualifiers, except for the one against Cambodia. Now, in your opinion, what is the likelihood of Iran, being granted what they want?
Right. So in theory, Iran has a good case to host these matches because Iran does have a history of hosting other national teams, such as Afghanistan and Syria during the last World Cup qualifiers. And if we look at COVID cases in Iran and some of the other countries that are being mentioned, such as Bahrain, we see that Iran's COVID cases apparently have stabilized a bit since its December surge, while in countries like Bahrain, there was actually a recent surge. So that might work against the Bahrainis in this case. But overall, it's tough to say because, as we both know, AFC is a very corrupt confederation, and Iran and AFC have not gotten along really ever.
From my point of view, I just got to go out and say it that even though, let's just say that it would make the most logical sense for these matches to be played in Iran, I still don't see it happening at all because, like you just said, we're talking about the Asian Football Confederation. Whenever you think of the word logic, just imagine the exact opposite. That's what the Asian Football Confederation does. Okay, they don't care about logic.
And they especially don't care about it helping out, our national team, Melli. And that's the truth. And, before we get into other places where these games might be played, I mean, let's just say, we obviously know this is the way it's going to go down. I can't see any more postponements happening because, time is running out. Before you know it, it's going to be 2022. Now, for these 4 qualifiers, I mean, we all know that teams have to submit 23-man rosters. But in this situation, do you see FIFA making an exception and saying that there could be perhaps a 30-man roster and more substitutions in each game?
Well, I don't know about a 30-man roster. More substitutions, perhaps. These are all very hypothetical things. But one thing is for certain, though. We should be blessed or feel blessed, that is, that we have many Euro-based players. That means that their stamina is, world-class for the most part, and they're able to play in this tournament-style series of games because that's really what it is. We have 4 games in a span of 12 days. That's like the group stage of a World Cup, plus a game. So I think that the fact that we do have Euro-based players, it's going to be to our benefit. I don't know about the 30-man roster, maybe, but that's all I can say about that for now.
But one other thing, and I can't help but have to bring it up. It's just that Iran has 4 games to play. Iraq and Bahrain do not have 4 games to play. They each have 3 games to play. How huge is that? Is this something that's crossed your mind at all?
Well, that won't be to Iran's benefit, most likely. The Iraqis, the Bahrainis will play extra hard against Iran, as we know they always do. They have a fire in their gut when they play against us, and unfortunately, we underestimate them or we have a mental block against them. So the fact that they're going to have an extra game worth of rest will not be to our benefit, but only to theirs. But like I said, we do have a Euro-based team, and I think that will really come in clutch during these next 4 games.
Iran currently third in Group C behind Bahrain and Iraq. Obviously, an uphill climb. We know it can be done. It's just that all this time, I've been very positive about this because, before COVID and the pandemic happened, it was always the same thing, saying, hey, 3 of these final 4 qualifiers are at home. We'll take care of business. We'll be good.
But as we've been talking about, this is a situation right now. Don't want to keep being negative, but for the way things are looking right now, I do understand some of the pessimistic points of view. But still, at the end of the day, Iran is still the best team in this group, and they gotta show it.
Absolutely, Art. You said it. We're the best team on paper, that's for sure, and we do have to show it. I think again, we cannot take Iraq and Bahrain for granted. We have to play our best football, and I have a feeling that we will, because Iran tends to play well under an immense amount of pressure, surprisingly. As shown, in our World Cup games against some of the best teams in the world. So, fingers crossed. I can understand why folks will be pessimistic about the upcoming 4 games, especially the last 2, but we have to also have a positive mindset and support Team Melli during this time.
Absolutely. And with that, let's talk about this centralized location. I might have gone off on a tangent a little. I do have a habit of doing that in general. Anyways, though, now some of the options, I've heard, through some anonymous sources that Malaysia might be one of the options as well. And, when I heard that Bahrain, submitted a request to host matches.
I actually just got to the point where I said, you know what? These games are not going to happen in Iran. I'm not really feeling like Malaysia is the best of ideas either, because I always have those memories of that, really rainy, drench-filled game against Syria for 2018 qualifying. And also even that close 3-2 loss against Japan back in 1998 qualifying.
So I feel out of all the possibilities, I think these games need to just be played in Qatar. They have the good facilities, and that's a place that our Team Melli footballers have become very accustomed to in the past few years.
Yeah, I think that's a great option, considering Qatar will be the host of the 2022 World Cup. It would be good preparation for them as well, and it would be positive for Iran, because Qatar and Iran are friendly with each other nowadays. I don't know how much of a difference that will make, but it certainly won't hurt. And yeah, Malaysia would not be conducive for 3 out of the 5, I believe, 5 teams in the group, So we'll see. Hopefully it stays in West Asia.
Now, from your point of view, we're getting closer to wrapping up this edition of Team Melli Talk. Just from what you're thinking, though, what do you think is going to end up happening ultimately? Where do you think these games will be played?
Knowing AFC and Iran's relationship, I don't think Iran will be hosting these upcoming matches, unfortunately. I don't see it really happening in Malaysia either. That would be strange. Most likely it would be in Qatar, I think. That just seems like the most rational choice.
And if fans are allowed in the stadium, I just got to get this message out to the Iranian community in Qatar. If these games are played in Qatar, you got to get your tickets and get to the stadium.
Absolutely.
Well, with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of Team Melli Talk.
Pasha, as always, pleasure to have you on the show.
Art, once again, I really appreciate you inviting me, and yeah, let's hope for Iran, man. Let's hope for Iran.
Thank you, everybody, for the support. Really do appreciate it. Get to our website, www.teammellitalk.com. Remember, this is your best source for the latest news on Team Melli, the national team of Iran. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The handle, @Team Melli Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification button. See you on the next edition of Melli Talk.